Good afternoon, class. My name is Vincent Harrison, and I will be taking you elements of economics 2. Last semester, we started with elements of economics 1, where we looked at economics from the microscopic aspect. In other words, we study economics as a unit from individual consumers' demand from a particular firm and a particular industry. However, in this semester, we want to look at economics from the entire economic view. And in this course, we intend to look at the introduction to microeconomics, under which we'll see the meaning of microeconomics, the nature of microeconomics, the scope and importance of microeconomics, the difference between macroeconomics and microeconomics, and finally to also look at some of the limitations of microeconomics as a way of introducing the subject matter. Let us start with the meaning of microeconomics. According to Henderson and Polley in their book, macroeconomics is the study of the economy as a whole, meaning it is the study of aggregates or averages covering the entire economy, unlike micro that's concentrated on individual units. Macroeconomics concentrates on the entire economy, looking at how microeconomic variables interact and also interdepend on each other. And as such, a study carried out by analyzing the behavior of an interaction between macroeconomic variables such as national output, gross national product, aggregate employment, the general price level, aggregate consumption, savings, and investment, price level, and economic transactions with the rest of the world. Simply put, microeconomics studies the relationship and interaction between the microeconomic variables and other internal and external factors or forces that determine the level and growth of national output and employment, the general price level, and the balance of payment position of an economy. Specifically, we are simply saying that microeconomics seek to answer questions such as how are GNP and GDP determined. In other words, how to ascertain GDP or gross domestic product, and how to determine gross national product. It also answers questions such as which factor or factors and forces determine the GNP or the GDP growth and depression in the economy. It also answers questions such as how is aggregate employment determined and what causes inflation and deflation in the country, and how do they affect the economy. Also, Microeconomy answer questions such as how do government policies, that is monetary and fiscal policy, affect the economy and business activities. The CBN, which is the Central Bank of Nigeria, as the representative of the government in the banking industry, is saddled with the responsibility of monetary policy, which is a deliberate action by the monetary authority to influence the cost, the quantity, and the availability of money in circulation in order to achieve the macroeconomic objective of the government, while the fiscal policy that includes government expenditure and taxation is also a policy of the government that aim at organizing and ensuring the smooth working of the economy as a whole. Now, having looked at the meaning of macroeconomics and the question macroeconomy set out to answer vis-a-vis the main objectives of microeconomics, we want to then look at the nature of microeconomics, which you can also refer to the areas in which microeconomics covers. Macroeconomics is the study of aggregates or averages covering the entire economy. In other words, it is not centered on individual units, but rather centered on the entire economy, how the economy works. And it looks at factors such as total employment, national income, national output, total investment, total consumption, total savings, aggregate supply, aggregate demand, and general price level, wage level, and cost structure. These are not individual units, but rather they are issues of national interest and covers the entire economy. In other words, it is aggregative economics which examines the interrelationship or the interrelation among the various aggregates, their determination and causes of fluctuations in them. In other words, we are simply saying that the nature of microeconomy is that it studies macroeconomic variables, how they relate, how they interact, and how they influence the activity of the economy as a whole. In the words of Professor Ackley, he says that microeconomics deals with economic affairs in the large. It concerns the overall dimensions of economic life. It looks at the total size and shape and functioning of the entire economic experience rather than workings of articulation of dimension of individual parts. It studies the character of these variables independently of trees which composed it. So it is a dimension of economic life that sees the economy as a whole, other than looking at the economy from individual perspective or unit. Also, macroeconomics is known as the theory of income and employment, or simply income analysis. It is concerned with the problems of unemployment, economic fluctuations, inflation or deflation, international trade, and economic growth. It is the study of causes of unemployment and various determinants of employment. These are other areas covered by macroeconomy to see the rate of employment, the rate of unemployment, what causes unemployment, how to improve employment, how to enhance effective and efficient management of inflation or deflation, how to improve economic growth, and also how to carry out effective international trade with other countries. In the field of business cycles, it is concerned with the effect of investment on total output. In other words, how investment can influence productivity, total income, and aggregate employment. And also, in monetary policy, it studies the effect of the total quantity of money on the general price level. How too much money can result to inflation, or insufficient supply of money can result to deflation. And international trade also is the problem of balance of payment. Is a country paying more for importing, or the country is receiving more for exports? These are areas of macroeconomic analysis. Above all, macroeconomics theory discussed sees the problem of determination of the total income of a country and causes of the fluctuation, meaning how these things change over time. Having looked at the nature of macroeconomics, meaning the area of interest, the area of focus, the area of coverage of macroeconomics, we will now want to look at the theoretical and practical importance as it regards to macroeconomic, which is the study of aggregate economic activity. One of the importance of macroeconomics is that it helps to understand the working of the economy. Economic activities can be analyzed looking at macroeconomic variables such as inflation, economic growth, total investment, total saving, how they work, how they interact. It is macroeconomic that enables us to get a better understanding of how this works as well. So the study of macroeconomic variable is indispensable for understanding the working of the economy. Number two important of macroeconomy is that in terms of economic policy, macroeconomy is extremely useful from the point of view of economic policy, in that modern government, especially that of the underdeveloped economies, are confronted with innumerable economic problems. So they will have to put on policy that will help in achieving ways to resolve this contending issue in every economy. So as a developed country tries to improve, underdeveloped and developing nations will want to do more. So they need to enact policies, put in place macroeconomic policy that will help to tackle especially those challenges that are peculiar to the economy. Now, in terms of unemployment, the rate of unemployment is increasing on a daily basis, and economists will want to study the causes of this, the effects, and also ways to remedy these challenges in every economy. So the study of macroeconomy is very important because according to the Keynesian theory of employment, that it is an exercise in macroeconomic study because it will help in now looking at how we can depend on effective demand, which in turn depends on aggregate demand and then aggregate supply function. In other words, how individual demands sum up together becomes the total or aggregate demand, and as demand increases, it is expected that supply will also increase, and for supply to increase, there is need to employ more hands to enhance productivity, and this will ultimately result to more employment, which will reduce unemployment rate. Macroeconomics has a special significance in studying the causes, effects, and remedy of general unemployment, which is what is facing our economy today, especially in Nigeria. There is need to increase supply, increase the need for more factors of production to enhance employment and improve on productivity. In national income, the study of macroeconomy is very important for evaluating the overall performance of the economy in terms of national income. While we look at individual income, the summation of this individual income, that is all the income attributed to all factors of production, is what results to national income. So if individuals can earn more, or if individual factors of production can earn more, ultimately it will lead to increase in national income. And the macroeconomic focus on looking at this area, and it is important for every economy. Also, in economic growth, the economics of growth is also a study in macroeconomics. You want to see if the economy is growing, if not, why? And if the economy is growing, what do we do to increase on the rate of growth? And if it is not growing, what do we need to do in order to enhance growth in the economy, and at what level? If the economic is constant or static in nature, what are the causes of this and how to move forward to increase economic growth? In monetary problems, that is the issue of monetary policy, where you have too much money chasing fewer goods, which is an inflation in every economy, the monetary authority will have to look at the policy to pursue. It's either we are having a contractionary policy or an expansionary policy. Contractionary meaning that if there is too little money in the circulation in the economy, which will ultimately lead to deflation, that the economic policy makers in terms of monetary policy, which is the CBN, as the representative of the government in the financial institution, is to enact policy that will expand the economy by bringing out more money, by advancing or encouraging especially the financial institution to create more money in circulation. By so doing, the economy is expand. And if it is an expansion challenge we have, they will do reverse in the sense that they will have to mop up money from the economy so that they will reduce the excesses in order to combat inflation, as the case may be. And also in terms of business cycle, macroeconomics is an approach to economic problems that started after the Great Depression. Thus, it is important in analyzing the causes of economic fluctuations in providing remedies to these things, knowing fully well that business has a cycle from seed to maturity, where the business gets to the apex, and each of these stages of a business will require different approach in order to continue with the business. So microeconomy helps in studying these things that has to do with the relationship among the variables. Furthermore, for understanding the behavior of individual units, macroeconomics helps in understanding the behavior of individual units, in that individual units aggregates together result to macroeconomic objective. In other words, we are saying for understanding the behavior of individual units, the study of macroeconomics is imperative. It becomes very necessary to do that because demand for individual products depend upon aggregate demand in the economy. Unless the causes of deficiency in aggregate demand are analyzed, it is not possible to understand fully the reasons for a fall in the demand of individual products. So it is essential we look at aggregate demand also, not just individual demand, because this cannot be treated in isolation. Finally, in conclusion, we may conclude that microeconomics enriches our knowledge of the functioning of an economy by studying the behavior of national income, output, investment, savings, and consumptions. Moreover, it throws more light in solving the problems of unemployment, inflation, economic instability, and economic growth as a whole. Now, we want to look at the difference between microeconomics and macroeconomics. Remember, as earlier mentioned, we focus our attention on microeconomics in the first semester, which is MI. Now we are focusing our attention on macroeconomics. Now we have graduated from individual firm, individual unit, individual industry, or particular industry to look at the entire economy. So we want to now see the difference, few variation between these two economic analysis. Microeconomics, which is MI, deals with the study of individual economic units, as earlier mentioned, as well as the economic actions of individuals and groups of individuals. Thus, in microeconomics, we are concerned with the individual prices, income, production, output, particular household, firm, industry. So you can see the attention of microeconomics is basically on individuals, small group of individuals, a particular firm, a particular industry. So it is not a general analysis of the entire economy. While macroeconomics involves the study of aggregates, such that instead of individual and small group of individuals, macroeconomics study the entire economic life. Instead of individual prices, it studies price level, meaning general price level. And instead of individual income, macroeconomics studies the national income. Also, macroeconomics objective can be viewed from two sides: the demand and the supply sides. On the demand side, the objective of microeconomics is to maximize utility. In other words, every consumer wants to utilize satisfaction. You want to maximize satisfaction. You want to enjoy from every kobo you are paying out for goods and services. And on the supply side, is that the supplier always want to maximize profit. He's out there to make profit. So he wants to do everything within his power to make profit. So these are the two sides of the objective of microeconomics. Macroeconomic, on the other hand, has a main objective of full employment, price stability, balance of payment, and economic growth. And this makes us to clearly differentiate that they have different objectives. One is centered on demand and supply, the other is centered on the entire performance of the economy in terms of employment, price stability, balance of payment, and economic growth. Thirdly, microeconomics is based on the partial equilibrium analysis, which help to explain equilibrium determination in individual sectors of an economy, in firm and industry. In other words, it is not a complete equilibrium analysis. Partial meaning that it is a one side or half analysis of what is happening to a particular industry, a particular firm, what is happening to an individual or a particular household, not looking at what is happening to the entire economy. But macroeconomics, on the other hand, is based on the general equilibrium analysis, which tries to explain the determination of equilibrium of the entire economic system. So it is not peculiar, it is not particular about this, but generalizes through the interrelationship and interdependence of the various sectors of an economy. Furthermore, microeconomics involves static analysis, given that its studies of economic equilibrium condition are analyzed at a particular period. Static meaning what happens now is analyzed and then solutions are provided based on the current period. It does not involve time dimension in its analysis, meaning things changes over time. These are not included in microeconomics. So it is static in nature. While macroeconomics, on the other hand, is concerned with dynamic analysis, taking into consideration lags, rate of changes, past, and expected value of variation. In other words, microeconomics try to look at what has happened before, what is happening now, the rate of change, and also the nature of changes in economic analysis, so that they can make a prediction and then ascertain a future reality, other than just focusing our analysis on current situation alone, as found in microeconomics. Having looked at the importance of microeconomics in terms of theory and practical aspect, let us also look at some of the limitations. Of course, microeconomics also have some shortcomings, and we intend to look at it briefly. Number one of the limitations of microeconomic analysis is that fallacy of composition is likely to play out in microeconomic analysis. In microeconomic analysis, the fallacy of composition is involved. That is, we are saying aggregate economic behavior is the sum of total individual activities. And that is the position of macroeconomists, to say that it is individual activities that sum up to give the total activities. But what is true of individuals is not necessarily true of the economy as a whole. And we are simply saying that if macroeconomic analysis is saying that it is the summation of individuals that result to the total activities, that sometimes this may not be true. And for example, savings are private virtue, but a public vice. If total savings in the economy increases, they may initiate a depression unless they are invested. Again, if an individual depositor withdraws his money from the bank, there is no danger. But if all depositors do this simultaneously, there will be a run on the banks, and the banking system will be adversely affected. So we are simply saying, while savings may be good to one, it may be dangerous to the other. So if we are using macroeconomic analysis to generalize as to say savings are good for the public or evil to the public, then we are not being fair in our analysis, because it may be good in a particular aspect and then evil in the other aspect. And that is what we refer to as fallacy of composition. Number two, to regard the aggregates as homogeneous. The main defect in macro analysis is that it regards the aggregate as homogeneous without caring about the individual composition and structure. The average wage in a country is the sum of total wage of all occupations. That is, wages of clerk, typists, teachers, nurses, and so on. But the view of aggregate employment depends on relative structure of wages rather than the average wages. And number three, aggregate variables may not be important necessarily. In other words, aggregate variables may not be necessarily important. The aggregate variables which form the economic system may not be of much significance. For instance, the national income of a country is the total of all individual incomes. A rise in the national income does not mean that individual income have risen. The increase in national income might be the result of increase in the incomes of a few rich people in the country, and that does not translate to increase in other people's income. So if few people have this increase in their income, or those tagged as rich people in the economy, this will increase the national income. But in reality, the large number of people in the economy will not have this effect of increase in income, because the rich are smaller units or number compared to the total population in the economy. And number four, indiscriminate use of microeconomics misleading. An indiscriminate and uncritical use of microeconomics in analyzing the problems of the real world can often be misleading. For example, if the policy measures needed to achieve and maintain full employment in the economy are applied to structural unemployment in individual firms and industry, the result may be irrelevant. Similarly, measures aimed at controlling general price level, if not well applied, with much advantage for controlling prices of individual products. In other words, if we apply macroeconomic analysis, that is to generalize, we may not be saving or solving rather specific issues, because we will conclude and generalize based on aggregates, and this may not be helpful to handle peculiar issues in terms of individual prices of products, and also in terms of particular firms' employment and ways to improve on these areas. Finally, another limitation of microeconomics is the fact that it uses statistical and conceptual difficulties. The measurement of macroeconomic concepts involve a number of statistical and conceptual difficulties, and these problems relate to the aggregation of microeconomic variables. If individual units are almost similar, aggregation does not present much difficulty. In other words, if you are dealing with similar issues, similar activities, you can easily aggregate. But if you are dealing with individual units that are not similar, that are not related, then aggregating them becomes very dangerous. So, in aggregating economic variables, those with common features can easily be aggregated. But those who don't have similar features, if you aggregate them, you may be doing a very wrong thing, which will be detrimental to the workings of the entire economy. This is where we stop for today. And if you have any question, you can ask, or any area of clarification, you can seek clarification. Drop your comments, questions where necessary. However, I would like you to take this assignment and submit next week. We are to explain how microeconomics describe the economy in terms of microeconomic variables, and also write short notes on microstatics and microdynamics. As earlier mentioned, you submit the assignment next week. And see you next week, God's willing.